Yeah, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Pickleweed Advisory Committee. Today is August 6th and the time is 7:09 p.m. Becky, I invite you to take roll, please.
All right. Chair Mason is here. Member Arbit.
Here.
Member Campos.
Here.
Member Nguyen.
Here.
Member Ruiz.
Here.
Member Sprague.
Here.
Member Sanchez.
Here.
And Member Vasquez.
Here.
Oh, also Park and Rec Commissioner Pasternak.
Here.
All right, great. Thank you.
And also note for the record, Assistant Director Craig Garame is also here. Here. And we do have one guest, Mario. And then our presenter will come up in a little bit. Okay, I do want to make a change to the agenda. Item 4, the walking tour of Pickleweed Park Enhancement Project. We will move that to after the meeting. So it'll be optional. If anybody wants to, they can go and do a walking tour of the park. But other than that, we will follow the agenda. And the first item is approval of the regular minutes of June 4th, 2025.
A motion to approve the regular minutes of June 4th, 2025.
Janet made the motion. Do we have a second? Rosa made the second.
All right, Member Arbit.
Yes.
Member Campos.
Yes.
Member Nguyen.
Yes.
Member Ruiz.
Yes.
Member Sprague.
Yes.
Member Sanchez.
Yes.
And Member Vasquez.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. And now we open the meeting to public comment. Mario, as you are the only person, do you have any comments to make of anything that's not on the agenda tonight?
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mario Dessa Lopez, and I'm the new community advocate for the Canal and West Marin at the Marin Community Foundation. This is the first time we've had this position, and we're really excited to be able to work in our priority communities at the foundation, the Canal being one of them. So I just want to say thank you so much for all the incredible work that you do here for our community, and I'm really looking forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
What do you do?
Yes, so
What happens over at your organization?
at the Marin Community Foundation,
Yes.
we do both philanthropy, and we also have donor advised funds and legacy funds for community members. But a big part of our work, specifically our division, Marin 24/7, is to see how we can serve the needs of Marin. And it comes back to Mr. and Mrs. Farrell Buck. Yes, so it's part of the Buck Foundation, yes.
Great.
Either of you have anything to add as members? No. Okay. Good. Seeing nothing else, we will close public comment and go to matters before the committee. Item number 1 is the presentation of the Peoples of the Canal by Rich, and it's going to be introduced by Craig.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Again, Craig Garame, one of the city's assistant library and recreation directors. I think I've met most of you over the years, but it's great to see you all here. Thank you so much for being here this evening and finding parking. So I wanted to take a couple minutes just to introduce this presentation before I turn it over to Rich Storick and the Canal Arts. And what I wanted to focus on is not so much the project itself, but really what the city's process is for the review of public art projects, just as kind of a preface to this. The city, about 2 years ago, created a new public art review process and created new guidelines to review public art. And since then, we've had the opportunity to review several public art projects. One of them, you may see whenever you walk in the building, there's a mural on the front of the community center. That was a great example of a project that went through the formal review process. It went to the Pickleweed Advisory Committee for review, went to our Public Art Review Board, who then reviewed it and made a recommendation for it to go to our City Council, who then are the ultimate decision makers for long-term public art projects. This is another proposal that the city's received. The Canal Arts is proposing a public art project on the Gene and John Starkweather path, as well as a portion of Pickleweed Park here in front of the community center. And that's the reason that it's coming to you, that this presentation is here. We want your feedback on the proposal, share your ideas, your recommendations for the Canal Arts. After this presentation, the next step for this project would be to go to our Public Art Review Board. They'll be reviewing it in alignment with the city's guidelines. And then they would be making a recommendation on whether that then goes to our city council. So there's a few steps involved in the process. And, you know, the Pickleweed Advisory Committee's role is really to focus specifically on things that are happening here in Pickleweed Park, here at the community center. And so this portion of the project is here. It also goes 2 miles down the pathway, all the way to the end of the Starkweather pathway. You're definitely welcome to make recommendations on that. That's a big part of the Canal neighborhood as well. But I just want to kind of frame the conversation so that you're aware of, you know, what are we really asking of this group right now? Steve, anything else that you think would be helpful there? Okay, well, with that, Rich, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Craig. Hello, committee members. The Canal Arts, I'd like to share a screen with you here. How do we do this?
It's back to the meeting.
Just a word about who the Canal Arts is. The Canal Arts is under my direction, but we're a dozen people who work in and out part-time, mostly artists, many of those immigrant artists associated and dedicated to the canal. And the Canal Arts mandate is to promote and create public art in this part of the world. We have some momentum. We've done some very interesting work, and we have much more in store. The project we're talking about tonight is the most ambitious one we've taken on. It's been in process for over 3 years from its idea inception. And it is a history project that looks at who was here, what was here in the canal, here in the Bay Area, as far back as 20,000 years. And the experience that people will have when this project is completed sometime around the 1st of next year is a 2-mile walk. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this fairly little known path. This project came about, Marla and I walked this path for years, and again thinking, what used to be here? What was this like if you go back in time? And what we've come up with here is a proposal to the city, and with all of the required process to get permission to create this on city property. It's going to be a series of 22, 3, 4 of these signposts that will begin at the very south end of the 2-mile path on the shoreline. And in ancient times, this is the Ice Age, 20,000 years ago, and imagining what might have been here. But one of the items that we're proposing we have to find funding for is a sculpture. Now, I can tell you a little bit more about that later, but it's a sculpture that is evoking the concept of time immemorial, time that continues, which is a concept that is in the belief of the indigenous people here, that they have in fact been here since time immemorial. The very first of the signs, and I don't know if we should take the time to read all of the text of each one of these. There are enough of them that would take most of the evening, but I can give you just a few of the highlights of each of them. This one says, what was here before there was a bay. Go back far enough, the sea level was so low that the ocean front was 20 miles away from us. There was no bay here. It was a beautiful, green, verdant valley with lots of wildlife. Most of this country and other parts of the world were under glaciers. Here, though, the weather was fair enough that life thrived. Then we talk about who were the first peoples here. And there's a lot of discussion about that. Archaeologists are updating their concepts of what that means, how people came to the canal, came to Northern California, Southern California, and South America. And the consensus is that in fact they came from north, from Asia. They did not come overland, but they came by boat. They came right along the seashore. Why not? Look at all the sea life and nourishment. And
How are you depicting those people?
say again?
How are you depicting the people who first came here?
We don't know, of course.
I mean, I see your eyes there, but it doesn't look like, you mentioned Asian, it doesn't look
Well,
like
yeah, I mean,
Asian.
the artwork that accompanies each of these exhibits is attempted to evoke something about the subject. But nobody, of course, knows, except that there are signs, there are indications that we're humans here even much longer than 20,000 years ago. But there's no evidence, except that there is evidence as you go down south into Southern California, into Central America.
That's a lot.
So if people got that far, they had to come through San Rafael. That's our theory.
That's a lot.
Now we begin to talk about, and not we begin to talk about, but the Coast Miwok, who are our partners in this project, are telling their story. And that is that these people who locally call themselves the Tamalaguasto of the Coast Miwok have been here forever. And they have their belief origin story of who the creatures were that gave birth to the people who were originally here. And we're beginning now to see art that's produced and offered as part of our project by the Coast Miwok tribal members. We talked then about what was Coast Miwok life, and it was seasonal. I'll read a few words. Coast Miwok people live in close relationship with these lands and waters. Traditional knowledge guides seasonal harvests, prescribed burns, and native plant cultivation. Spring signaled the gathering of the fresh greens, roots, and bulbs. Summer brings ripened seeds of small flowering plants, native grasses, gathered into baskets. And on it goes to the cycles of Coast Miwok life here locally. This is talking about the belief, and this is again, and these are in the words of the Coast Miwok tribal members, elders, people who are carrying the culture, carrying the stories. And it has to do with Coast Miwok people lived in deep relationship with this land, not as wilderness to be left untouched, nor as a resource to be exploited. Those are two very important points that we all have to learn from.
Question.
Yes.
Are those crucifixes?
Are they what?
Crosses? What kind of crosses are they?
No, they're not. They're indications of fire.
Fire?
Fire,
It doesn't look like.
Yeah, it doesn't look
It looks like three crosses.
Well, you know, it's like looking at any abstraction. You will see things in it that may not have been intended.
Actually, there's four.
like now.
But I can pretty much assure you those are not crucifixes.
Yeah, but if I'm just looking at it here, and I'm looking at people just seeing it are gonna think that.
They might, but those are ancient symbols that are used all over the world
I know.
prior to any Christian reference. And maybe that's the point, maybe that's something that should be explained. If you see a crucifix, beware.
That it is ancient. It didn't come with the Miwoks.
That's right. Then we talk about the very important part of the Miwok culture is their art. And it's some of the most spectacular mostly basketry that we know of. There are other aspects of art through stone implements and regalia, decoration. Art was not separate from daily life for the Coast Miwok. It was woven into baskets, tools, songs, and ceremony. And the point here being that, and they're making this point, that today Coast Miwok and other California Indian artists continue these traditions while innovating new forms. And their point being that unlike a lot of the common knowledge around the indigenous people in California, they were not wiped out. They were in fact resilient, maintained their cultures, usually had to go into hiding to contain and retain their tribal structure, and have come back into flourishing life in recent history. Please stop me anytime you have a question as we go. Another very interesting aspect of indigenous people all over, certainly this continent, is self-government to an amazing degree of sophistication. This speaks about long before contact with Europeans, Coast Miwok and other native nations had their own governments. Leadership came through kinship, responsibility, and consensus. What settlers mistook for lawlessness was in fact a sophisticated system of place-based governance. Family lineages, reciprocal obligations. Much to learn about this. And this is a collage depiction of the fact that people are gathering to govern themselves. What I haven't pointed out to you too, though, is that all of these exhibits are in text, both Spanish and English. And there is a feature that you may have noticed at the bottom of each of the panels. That is an ongoing 20,000-year dialogue between two crows and a coyote. It's the story that these people tell about history as they go through. And that's a feature that we have designed into the project, unlike any other interpretive exhibit that I've been involved in or have seen. Contains an element, excuse me, that's speaking just to kids, and the cartoon feature is one that touches everybody. And I brought some copies here. I want to show you. Pass them around, because you can't read them up here, but it did show you the dialogue between these three creatures. The reason I want to mention it is because we're working with the Marin Community of Education. Superintendent John Carroll has been a fan of this project and has plans for the Marin School children to come to this experience and to walk the 2 miles outdoors, see the bay, see the wildlife that's visible, and imagine what might have been here before. And that's what this is doing.
I want to put one thing in here, and that is that the cartoon characters, the story that they tell is pretty simplistic, but it's the same message on each thing. And for adults who don't want to spend the time to read the English or the Spanish and are just want to sort of make a quick walk, these cartoon guys tell you the story. It's not just children, because a lot of adults do not want to take the time. Three of these will walk by, and this catches their attention, and it goes all the way through. And these guys at the bottom tell you everything you need to know about this project. So it's not just children.
How's it going to be presented? It's going to be on placards?
Yeah, each of
boards
the exhibits will be a 2-foot by 3-foot sign,
Okay.
like the mock-up that we showed you to begin with. Let me show you again, but those are placed about 1/10 of a mile apart along, so that as you walk the 2 miles, we calculated that every step you take is worth about 5 years of history.
Now, is it going to be on the lagoon side or on the bay side?
On the lagoon side, yes.
Okay, because I love to just see that.
Excuse me,
It's on the base
on the
side.
base.
You know, I like to see
One of
it on
the signs has to be on the lagoon side, but for the most part, you're looking at the bay as you walk.
Richard, would it be similar to the sign that's in front of the mural right now?
Yes, yeah, it's a similar, typical kind of
It's bigger.
interpretive sign. We've had people who we've asked to assess the project for us, taking people with other experience doing exhibit work. And one of the comments that came to us was that, well, we think that this kind of an experience should be very simple. It should be just really a very few words and written to like an 8th grade reading level. And we heard that comment, and I thought, no, this project, in fact, it's designed as an educational destination. People wanting to come here to learn something about California history. Many of the chapters are not very well known at all. There is an element for the kids, and as Marla says, it's for the adults too. But
With short attention spans,
but the text is not written for an 8th grade reading level. The text gets a little deeper than that, and that's our intent. Another very important part of the history of the indigenous people in California was the business, the commerce, the fact that there was trading going on, organized and thriving trading that is evidenced in seeing things like beads and flint work that are found all over the state that come from various points. But we know that there was an exchange of trading of goods and also culture. This map shows some of the exchanges, some of the exchange routes. The next big part of all of our history, I think, is the fact that the Europeans came upon the Miwok by accident, coming into Drake's Bay to service the ship in Francis Drake. This picture shows a ship that's called careen. Careening is when you bring a ship in at high tide, tide goes out, the ship now is beached and available to maintain and improve. And as they do that, to repair their ships, there were 2 of them, they meet the local people here. And there's a story, I mean, there's an account of this meeting told by people on board the Golden Hind. And it's all, it's curious, it's wonderful. There's no hostility. They're amazed at the fact that they don't speak any language in common, that they can communicate. And they leave, they depart, having had a very positive experience. But as we all know, the European contact with indigenous people turned out to be anything but delightful. So this is part of the story.
Isn't it the first people is like the India, the native India first in my work, or the European?
Miwok was first, and then we met the Europeans here, right?
Well, the Miwok, as far as we know, they're the people who have been here the longest. Now, of course, it's possible that for thousands of years there were humans here before the Miwok think they were here, although when they say we've been here since forever.
And then the European come up.
Yes, yes. Then, of course, this becomes now more and more common knowledge what happens when the Spanish come into California and establish their missions, and the conflict between the indigenous people and the Spanish missionaries is not a pretty picture. It's one of if not slavery, it's one of indenture and disease. And this is telling. And what became of that? The Spanish eventually then were displaced by Mexicans coming up to get the church out of the missions. And I'm a native San Franciscan, and part of my impetus for this project is that I grew up not knowing anything about the real story of what happened between the indigenous people here and the Europeans. And it gets worse. But the gold rush, of course, is one of the big disasters for the indigenous people in this part of the world. And this tells the story of it. It says within a year, tens of thousands of settlers flooded native lands in search of fortune. Before the gold rush, California Indians far outnumbered non-native residents. That changed almost overnight. This is the one chapter that's probably the most controversial. And had an interesting talk with Mayor Kate years ago when we embarked on this project. And she said, you know, Rich, this is on city property. And we're concerned about conflict, and we're concerned about things that would be contentious. I had to say, well, at the heart of this story are some chapters in California's history that California shouldn't be proud of. And one of them is that California's first governor, whose name was Peter Burnett, affected a legal structure in the state that made slavery and murder legal. Bounties were paid. And the whole, he's quoted, and it's in the documents, as saying that extermination of California Indians was called for and legal. Now imagine, it's a horrendous story, but it's part of our past, and I think it's something that to be learned from. This depicts that part of this history. This was not a hidden past. It was written into policy, declared in newspapers, and reported in state budgets. Money changed hands. Now we come to more recent history, and this is a treatment of the impact of the human species on Earth. It's our human era now, starting to be called the Anthropocene. We live in a geological area called the Anthropocene, shaped by human activity on a planetary scale. And then we get into talking about carbon being released by fossil fuels and what it does to the atmosphere. Indigenous peoples have long managed ecosystems without destroying them, living within the limits of the land. Their systems emphasized reciprocity, restraint, and regeneration. Important lessons. And while we can't read it, and I don't have it in front of me, but the accompanying cartoon explains simply something about the geology of fossil fuels. Then more locally, this is loss and restoration. This is what happened to the Bay Area. And the fact that 85% or more of the wetlands around the bay have been filled and disappeared to great detriment to wildlife and to protection of the shorelines, as we know now. Without that wetland protection, we're getting flooding here in the canal and elsewhere, probably more so here though than anywhere else in the Bay Area. That's a result of having filled land right up to the shoreline and obliterating the wetlands. And the visual here is a collection of man-made items like the Golden Gate Bridge and the levees that you see in the lower right there. There's a little map in the upper right that you will be able to read, and it talks about the shell mounds. 450 or 60 of them were recorded all around the Bay Area. This was such a population center, and the shell mounds were representative of the Indian culture here, and that's where the refuse was deposited, and eventually then it became a cultural sacred spot because people were buried there. And contrasted on the left with a pristine landscape with before humans began to intervene. Now we're going, and as you wanted to look at here is across the top of each of these exhibits is a key that tells you where you are, and it's going from the Ice Age, and the cold blue colors in the Ice Age colors are changing as you come toward the present day and global warming and climate crisis toward the red colors. That's the key. And in every case, it says you're the new migrants. It says here, right, that you are here. If you came, for example, if you came to the south end of this where there's parking to begin the history walk 20,000 years ago, and you walk north to present day and into the future, you would see it from the past to the present. If you parked here and began walking in the other direction, you see it from actually the future into the present, into the past. People who park at the Target or the Home Depot parking lot out there and happen to come into the middle of the trail, they would probably come in around the gold rush and the missions, that part of history. And then depending on which way they walked, they'd go back in time or come forward. But this talks now about war and conflict transformed the population of the canal. Each wave of newcomers seeking safety and opportunity. Before World War II, Black Americans journeyed to the Bay Area to build the ships that would help with the war, establishing a community in nearby Marine City. Later in the 1970s, refugees from the Vietnam War, fled, or as they call it, the American War, fled by boat, and many settled in the Bay Area and the canal. And in the 80s, a new wave of immigration from El Salvador, Guatemala, and other Central American countries began after military regimes backed by the United States clashed with revolutionary groups. Much more current history. This then is the exhibit called Bienvenidos Chao Mundo. Did I pronounce that correctly? And it is saying making a home in the canal. Now, this is very local. It's depicting a young boy who's looking across the canal to the yacht harbors and thinking about his present and his future. This is telling the story, though, of a canal that's predominantly Latino. Neighborhood pulses with life from the colorful Dia de los Muertos celebrations, big buzz of activity with Pickleweed Park and Albert Morro Community Center. So children play in the streets while street vendors sell palitos. So it's to tell people who have never been here before, what is this canal community like today? Now one chapter that talks more about the indigenous, not just California, but the indigenous people in this country resurging, coming back into life. And it says, despite centuries of colonization, genocide, and cultural loss, California Indians are leading a powerful cultural and political native reawakening. Talking about the history of that, how that's emerged, and how it is now coming present. Please stop me if you have any questions about this. I'm going too fast. Now we go to the last three of the chapters, and it is looking at the canal and looking to the future. The canal is flooding. So we're saying, what's happening here now? What's happening from the climate crisis? What's the extent of the crisis as it affects the canal?
Has anything been flooded yet?
Pardon me?
Has anything been flooded?
Has anything been flooded? Oh, yes.
Like,
Well, the canal is actually below sea level, parts of it. And when there are high tides, wind-driven storms, king tides, there's flooding that occurs all through here, and it's getting worse.
Flooding what?
And I say, it is getting worse.
I know, but what is the flooding? Because I have not, in 10 years, I have not noticed much flooding.
Well, you'd have to be here on a high tide day, I guess, to
It's not
see it.
here.
Yeah, we live here and I mean, I'm also saying I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen
Well,
I would say, I do know that there are areas of the canal that do flood during peak tides. You can go to the city's website, our sustainability page. We have a specific page set up that's related to sea level rise and some of the efforts that the city's taking to combat some of the known flood areas and some of the areas that are prone to potential future flooding. So there are
How far in the
areas.
future, when you say prone to potential future flooding, how far in the future are you projecting?
I would really have to defer with these type of specific questions. I can get you in touch if you want like really detailed information on that with our sustainability team. And we have an individual in the city dedicated to working on the sea level rise issue. Her name is Kate Pagaman, and she'd be a great resource that I can point to. So maybe we could talk about that offline, because I know that's not the direct focus here, but definitely,
Because that's
Great
gonna
question.
kill our insurance.
yeah.
it's a big concern. There are two things happening here, and the most commonly understood is the fact that with global warming, glaciers melting, sea level is rising. It's rising, measurably rising, and flooding becomes more and more a threat every year. The other thing that's happening is that a lot of this land is on fill, and it's sinking. So you have sea level coming up and land going down. The combination is deadly. There are projections, there are hydrographic projections through the years that have been created. You can see maps of the Bay Area, you can see maps of the canal, San Rafael, for example, where in 10 years, the water is coming in, unless it's impeded, unless something is done. It's coming closer, closer, closer. I had a architect in schools program with Marin schools, and one of the exercises that we did with kids was to picture what's going to happen, and specifically at your school. And we were working in a school at the time that happened to be high enough that almost all of San Rafael would be flooded if nothing was done, except for their school. And their school happened to be in the path of a redesign and rebuild. This is Laurel Dale School. And so I said, okay, kids, here's your opportunity. We can redesign our new school. It has to be done anyway, so let's us do it. And the fact that the water is going to come right up to your doorstep, not go any further, we could design it as a waterfront school. This is a design opportunity for kids to think about what, of course, the horror of the fact of all of San Rafael being flooded is something else.
Has it been happening in the past in here for flooding?
I actually went to Bahia Vista, and I think I was probably in second grade when it actually did flood. And so Bahia Vista had to be cleared out because the water was going right to our door.
Yeah.
So I do, and yeah, I went to Bahia Vista, second grade, so that would have been.
So you can imagine, if
A while
ago.
A really long time ago.
Got the date yourself.
This is the first of three. This is talking about shaping the future and what the canal is doing, what the canal community is doing to respond to this threat. Imagine the canal in 2100. The bay has risen more than 6 feet, causing frequent flooding, but neighbors come together to place sandbags, place evacuation routes, plan evacuation. The shoreline and vulnerable buildings have been elevated, while some areas have been converted to wetlands that absorb storm surge and provide habitat for wildlife. A tide gate across the canal helps control water levels. But this is all in the talking phase right now, and it's going to cost an unbelievable fortune to achieve it. But it's survival for San Rafael. Not just the canal, but ultimately almost all of San Rafael. This is the last of the chapters, and it says from memory to action. Walking through 20,000 years of dramatic transformation from Ice Age valleys to tidal marshlands, from coast Miwok villages to today's vibrant immigrant community, the story of the canal teaches us that change, not stability, is the natural state of this landscape. The canal story reveals that resilient communities don't just survive change, they learn from it and shape it. By embracing this legacy of adaptation while working to protect their community, which is an indigenous what was the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it's an indigenous philosophy, of course, is something we have to learn from. Taking advantage and extracting what we can from the land and neglecting what's going on. And, you know, and I say, you know, politically now this is charged because as of, I think yesterday, the lid has been taken off officially, federally, from climate, EPA's protection of greenhouse gases. Take the restrictions off. Yes.
But just out of my curiosity, why do you want to put it on Starkweather Path? Why not put it around Pickleweed Park? Why not put it on Canal Street? Why not put it on Bellum? Why put it on that path?
Good question. That path is the place where you can see the edge of San Rafael. You can see and imagine, with some help, you can imagine what might have been here before. It's you might say, yes, it's at the front line of climate change.
China Camp, put it in China Camp.
Well, that's be fine. You know, we could put them in China Camp, we can put them everywhere. But for now, we're putting this on the 2 mile shoreline.
I don't know.
Well, I think it's also because it's 2 miles that you can start and walk. You know, you don't have to go around buildings or do anything, you just walk into 2
How
miles.
many people who walk here every day walk the 2 miles?
I don't know the answer to that.
I would say a lot of people.
Yeah,
I would say
and when we're
most.
walking all the time, we see nothing. And we see babies and strollers and the community's out there all the time.
Yeah.
So that was where
I
the,
know, but they don't want the whole 2 miles.
they do
They
actually.
get part of the story.
But even if they get part of the story, it's better than no story, right?
No,
Oh,
it's not
okay.
the same story over
Okay.
and over.
All right.
Not part of the same story. And I wouldn't put it on the Bayside. I mean, that gives people the chance, the opportunity to just see the
Well, they're
nature
very
there.
far apart, so the opportunity is in between each one. If you want to look at the water or the birds, the opportunity is there. You know, it's a place to put the story that's in a row. You know, that's like you're not going around buildings and stuff. You know, you're just kind of walking.
This project was proposed to the California Coastal Conservancy. And they have a program of telling coastal stories. And we received a grant from the Coastal Conservancy to do this project.
Is that like a museum for the people to see the history?
Well, it's like a museum, but it's outdoors. It's not in a museum. This is a walking, learning experience. And the idea is, and we have a very interesting video. We don't have time right now, but I can play it for you. And it's a walk that we took on the path with Mayor Kate Collin and Supervisor Bellotti and the superintendent of Marine Schools walking the path, thinking about this project. And their comments were that this is an opportunity for not just kids, but for all people who are interested in California history to come here, to walk it, the outdoors, have a
Field trip?
a field trip is right. You know,
Yellow
my-
buses.
My vision is yellow buses
Yeah,
pulling
yellow
up and
buses.
kids pouring out and teachers telling them, okay, this is what's in store for you. Let's start walking. It's an educational destination, and that's something that the Marin County School teachers and educational leaders are looking forward to taking advantage of. You're skeptical, I can see.
I am.
I gather.
Once we get done, I want to go around in order so everybody has a chance to ask questions, if we can do that. So this, hold on one second.
This then is the opposite. If you begin at the north end of the Albert Oral Community Center where we are and walk the other direction, this tells you what you're about to experience.
It will take a long time to build up.
for the whole 2 miles.
I mean, for the whole, like you say, is the project will take a long time to finish. I just think,
To actually finish the project,
yeah.
well, we've been working on it for, I mean, literally, it's been going on for about 3 years, and we will be finished early next year. If that was your question.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it's longer than next year, maybe 1 or 2 years. I don't know.
Well, when you embark on a project like this, you don't really know where it's going to go. You don't know where the funding might come from. We probably got now 14 people who have been part of doing this project. Writers, poets, artists, scientists, tribal members telling their stories, historians.
How to take more tourists compared to see? How to take more tourists?
Tourists,
Attract
Yeah.
more tourists.
Attract more tourists from the urban projects.
this goes on to show the Borough Center, which we're in right here now, and there will be an introductory sign at this location, right on the corner. And then you will be led to go around behind these buildings onto the new path. And you'll be directed to go in this direction and directed to continue this way. Now you're on the path and you're heading south. And that's our presentation. So I'm very anxious to hear from you.
Before we dig in, I just want to, Craig, thank you for your staff report and your introduction. Are the comments of the committee going to go to the Public Art Review Board, or how's that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a couple questions too that I'd like to kind of maybe ask, and maybe as we get into questions, I have a few things that I think might be helpful. But I think the plan here would be that we would be trying to first off make sure that the Canal Arts hears your feedback and has an opportunity to then respond, incorporate recommendations, or consider this as part of their engagement and outreach to the community. So this is a great time for you to share your thoughts. I heard a couple thoughts already coming out, and this is definitely the time to talk about it. We do, our public art guidelines do require projects like this to go through community engagement and really engage the community, asking if this is a project that is supported. So we consider this part of that engagement. And we can collect comments here. And definitely, we'll work with Rich, who's the lead on this project, to make sure that we're trying to address any significant issues or concerns that come up, and bring that to the Public Art Review Board as needed. So I think that's very awesome. So I had a couple questions. I've been taking some notes. I think one of my questions, Rich, was there's a lot of text on these signs. Some of it's historical. Some of it's maybe more focused on current events. There's a lot of information there, and I'm curious if you can share a little more about, who wrote the text, what are their credentials, what are their qualifications, maybe, and who has vetted that information for the kind of factual basis of what's going to be written on this display.
So we have the honor of having a PhD historian who is focused on this part of history, not back 20,000 years, but more recently, directing the writing process. Some of the storytelling, some of the text that's come from the Coast Miwok tribe elders. Some has come from interviews with people who have lived here in the canal and do live here, talking about what's life like in the canal. Others have come from talking with climate specialists who know what the reality of what's coming to the canal through climate change. So, we've had other community meetings with folks in the canal, mostly through our connections with the Bosista family. And I would guess 100 individuals who have seen what we've done and made comments and given us the benefit of their experience, their opinions.
And I think, process-wise, the city, our city's team, we're not historians. Right? I think it's hard for us to necessarily maybe go through all of the text and really make decisions or understand what is fact, what is opinion. And it sounds like there's a lot of people involved in that process. I think what we'll be asking the Canal Arts to do is to share who essentially will be signing off on this and what are their qualifications, either as a culture bearer, through we view the primary culture bearers of the Coast Miwok peoples as the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria. They are the sovereign state, and we would want to make sure we see probably a letter of support from them that says they've had a chance to review this information, both the creative content and the text, and that they agree that that's a good representation. And I think with the historical content in particular, the individual who is that PhD historian, that they reviewed it, and this is an accurate representation of the history. I think you mentioned there's some things there that may be more contentious. I'm just going to remind you and the group, like our guidelines are pretty clear that, and this is a tricky one because text is not necessarily art, right? But in the context of how we review this project, we're either reviewing it as a public art project. And our guidelines are clear that there should not be portrayals or themes that may be interpreted as derogatory, as to race, religion, sexual orientation, etc., and that the artwork's not going to contain subject matter that could be construed as advertising religious, promote political viewpoints or text. And so I would just kind of remind you of that, and as you're going through the project and refining it, just making sure that it is in alignment with those guidelines.
Yeah, we'll be able to make all those representations.
Okay. And then I think the similar question for the artwork itself, who are the artists? I know there's a wide variety of art that I saw in these images. So who are the artists? And I know I saw there were some photos that have depictions of identifiable people. Do you have all of the use rights to use all of the art that's portrayed?
Yes, we do. The artists are an assembly of several people who have very distinguished. For example, we're working with senior exhibit artists and designers with the Exploratorium, helping us present the artwork created. We have other artists that are interpretive artists who are depending upon actual resources to build into their artwork. And in all cases, we have the legal permission to use these images, if that's your question.
Yeah, that's kind of the big part of my question there.
Yeah.
I noticed, there's on each of the signs, I'm curious if there's a section of that text that describes what the content is, the artistic content is that's being displayed and how it may tie in with that text or what we're looking at. I think some of the images it was kind of like a montage or collage, and it was really difficult for me to maybe understand how that tied in directly with the text. Is there like a description on there at all?
Well, for the most part, we don't describe what's in the art. The art is intended to reinforce and help illustrate the story. So I'm not saying this image means this, and this is the Golden Gate Bridge that you see here, and this person represents this and that. You have to, the viewer has to invest themselves into this to say, oh, I get it, I see the connection, I understand what these things are, or I'm curious, I want to know more about it.
Got it. Okay, and I just had two other questions. One is, you mentioned a little bit, but how is the project funded, and who's involved, and do you have full project funding at this point?
Good question. The funding is coming from several sources. Our main grant has come from the Coastal Conservancy, $200,000 grant. We have a grant that's come from the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria, $50,000. We have a number of other sources, small foundations and individuals that have donated to the project to the extent of about $60,000. However, we have 2 or 3 items in this project that we would like to do. One of them is a complementary video that would in effect parallel the story to be available online to be able to go to the classrooms, for example, or someone who lives who knows where in the world who's interested in the subject could look at this and learn from it without having to come and walk the 2 miles. Another element that we would like to have funded is the sculpture piece, the sculpture that represents time immemorial. We were recently hit with the news that because of these tariffs, the cost of building and putting in the exhibits is going up, has gone up, and may go up a bit further. For example, there's a 50% tariff on metals that are going into this project. That's something we didn't anticipate, so we need some extra funding for that. And we're working on it. We have an ongoing funding effort.
So at this point, what would you say your kind of gap is from existing funding to what you need?
Well, it's not so much what we need because the exhibits themselves are almost covered, but for this materials cost, which is probably about 35,000 short. But to do the video or to do the sculpture, we don't know for sure, but it's another 200. And we're talking with people about that to say, are you interested in the project?
But is your question, Craig, that is there enough money to get it done, so it's done?
That's really what I'm getting at, right? I think,
And yes, there is.
I'm
It's
just-
just the rest of the stuff is just like, it'd be great, but to get that thing up and done, there's enough money, and the post-conservancy is very fluid with if the cost of the metal goes up or whatever, enough that there's not money there, they're very fluid. So it will get done, it will be up, signs will be up, the rest of it is gravy, if we can get it.
And there are a number of people who are continuing to work on the project who are working voluntarily. They're donating their time to it.
Well, I think that I'll kind of end my section here to say, yeah, I think it's a great project. I think it's a complicated one in a lot of ways. There's a lot of text, there's a lot of creative content. It's a 2 mile long installation. There's a lot of factors to consider. I think we've talked extensively about this over the last few years, and I think that the city's perspective on this is we want to welcome public art. I think that there's a lot of really great ideas here. Our review process, in addition to the artwork itself and the text, needs to include the nature of the physical installation along the pathway. And as a physical installation, we would view this as a public works project. And so Rich has been working with our public works department to make sure that we have the right environmental review and permitting in place for this project to move forward. So this would require a Bay Coastal Development Commission permit, BCDC permit, which I know Rich has applied for, and seems like they're kind of the tail end of potentially issuing that, getting approval for that BCDC permit. And then there's other things that we'll be looking at from the city's perspective to make sure that the placement of the signs would be accessible on the pathway, would not interfere with the public right of way, or I heard made some comments about viewpoints and considerations there, so really making sure we take that into consideration. But in addition to requiring full funding, we want to make sure that there's full funding in place. And that's essentially to make sure that someone doesn't start a project, it gets halfway done, and then it's incomplete, and then we're on the hook. And really making sure that the culture bearers here are involved, that the story is an accurate representation of their story. So making sure we get those letters of support and engagement from the community here. So yeah, with that.
I'd like time for committee to comment or ask questions. And since Craig started, why don't we, Kate, can we with you? And you're welcome to pass if you don't have any questions or comments.
Well, a couple of them were answered, so thank you. It does sound like being a public works project that then the upkeep or protection of the signs would fall to the city in terms of making sure there's no erosion, or if something does happen to a sign, that it would be the city's responsibility to keep the signs up. Is that accurate?
We can both answer that question. I'll start. I think the city has a template art license agreement that we'd be drafting to enter into with the Canal Arts, and that would really define those types of terms. How long do we expect it to be up? Who's responsible for maintenance and upkeep? You know, right now, the city does not have a budget for public art projects like this. So I think our ask would be of the Canal Arts to have budget available to potentially maintain that for a period of time. We have to talk about how long, you know, would it be maintained for, I think. Do you have an idea of how long
Yeah, we have an item in our budget. And it's limited, but we're expecting that, you know, if you try to project what the maintenance could require, physically, there should be no maintenance. These things are built to last for 15, 20 years. If it's vandalized, there's really no protection for that. And you know, if it's defaced, we can almost always cure that, fix that. But it's, you know, it's an issue. It's always an item. The project is being done at no cost to the city. It will be gifted to the city. But its future, we don't know.
In terms of placement for something like the sculpture, is that an additional part of approval for the project that would be separate if the sculpture is funded?
It's part of our application to the Bay Conservation Development. DCDC permit includes a couple of bench seatings and the sculpture at the far end of the path, which we.
Like the bridge end?
Yeah, the bridge end. Because there's a beach down there. Some of you haven't seen it. It's a nice little beach. That's really the beginning of the walk. And there we would like to see some improvements made to the Pickleweed Park, up to the Starkweather Park. And this reception space, sculpture, the introduction. And that's part of our permit. It's part of our encroachment permit application to the city of San Miguel.
I agree that thinking about them all being on the bay side is, I'm kind of in agreement about whether, it seems like they'll be about 400 or more feet apart. If I have done quick math right, for 24-ish signs over 2 miles. So that seems like there's a lot of space, but still to have everything on the bay side, I agree that that's maybe something to look at. Just from my opinion.
Well, tell me more, what you're thinking is about it because it blocks you or?
Well, just because it is an impediment along the entire, and I understand that they're adding something as well, but I mean, it is nice that you are right at the edge of the bay when you are walking along that path. And so to have something along that entire path, I wonder if it is.
I think, you're right. If somebody, and I know this happens. Somebody says, I don't want to see anything man-made when I go out and walk the path or walk up in the woods. I don't want to see any evidence of human.
I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, like, in terms of feedback, I agree with other people that have said that having everything on the bay side, I would wonder if there's an opportunity to put some more on the lagoon side rather than everything being on the bay side.
I think one of the pictures even showed Mount Tam in the background.
Which would be
That might
great to
appropriate
have,
on
yeah,
the
I
other
mean, there's
side.
lots of beautiful landscape and marine on both sides of the path.
Well, we've actually thought too that, the lagoon side has its own stories.
Yep.
And that could we tell part of that story to say, look, this is what this lagoon, of course, they're all man-made, but.
I don't think you have to tell a different story. I think the story still makes sense not every picture is of that landscape looking out onto the bay either. Not every depiction depicts that. So that's just my feedback. It's the ending of the story focusing on all of the flooding is kind of, to me, I don't see that as the end point for the canal. So the coming around to the community coming together to solve that problem maybe, but that is just another piece of feedback. Did we see the final slides or are those just drafts still?
Well, some of them are final.
Okay.
So there's still a few missing pieces. For example, we're waiting for some of the art from the tribe They're doing some high resolution photography that we're waiting on, but for the most part, it's what's intended. It's still, I mean, there may be some changes to it.
In the QR codes, can you remind me of what the plan is for those on all of them?
Well, the original intent of the QR codes was that if you're interested in this subject, that you could look at the QR code, go to find additional information about that. The problem that we've run into with that, though, is that how is that controlled? You know, who has that control over what's in that information? So we're thinking now it might be better to have QR codes at either end of the project that link you. This was a suggestion by the tribe that link you to state curriculum talking about the history, and that would be the end of it. It wouldn't be an open-ended.
And there wouldn't be a QR code on the signs anymore.
I think there are a lot of QR codes, so I would wonder about how to maintain that many different links to different things.
Yeah,
as-
one of the QR codes is a constant link to who all the participants and contributors were.
Sure. I just want to add to that too. I think, we've recently dealt with that question with a few other public art projects. We want to acknowledge artists and make sure that people can get more information, but QR codes can be tricky. They can also be abused. People can put their own QR code up and redirect. So there's a lot of things to consider. What I recommend, Rich, is we have a city public art page where we're building that to link back to projects that were completed through the city's public art program. And that might be what we'd recommend, is directing people there. We would then automatically redirect to whatever resources you wanted to send to. We can work.
And then the last thing, since it's a pretty accessible path, I'm wondering if you thought at all about accessibility features on the signs, whether Braille or linking to a recording of someone reading it, or as you said that they would be accessible,
We
but
certainly have, and if we could afford it, these are features that we would love to build in. The cost of doing Braille on the signs is considerable. It's not in our budget. Each of the signs, though, is designed to national park standards, so it is accessible in wheelchair. None of them are hard to get to.
all right, thank you.
Darlene?
He answered all the same like question about the who are in Rich. You going to maybe you have to think something for protect the art for vandalism, because we live in this Latinos community, and some people. What are you going to cover
Well, the art itself is it's a high tech finish that is resistant to any markups. It's intended to be a 20-year exposed to the weather. Now, if somebody wants to damage it with a hammer, that anybody can do that. There's a theory, though, that we've seen borne out. That is, it's called the broken window theory. And this relates to buildings. If a building is well maintained, for the most part, it's left alone. It's when a building or any structure starts to look like it's neglected, that nobody cares about it, then it becomes more likely to be subject to vandalism or damage. And we've seen it with our murals. We've seen our murals up in areas where there has been a history of graffiti tagging. So when a fine piece of artwork comes on the wall, especially if it's artwork that's been part of the community effort, people know that it's a community. There's a community.
Just like the one out here,
Yeah, that it deters vandalism.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Just for clarification, because I know a lot of questions about the signs that are out there. About 8 years ago, there was an environmental sign about the human-made oyster beds that's currently on the. Would your signs be about the same height? Think is that? It seems like a similar style to what you're proposing.
It is a similar style. the signs conform to the regulations of the DCDC.
Uh-huh.
And they also happen to conform to the National Park Service signs, recommended best practice.
So, I mean, just for our, walking out there, it'd be something similar to that
Yeah,
as far as height.
we have a mock-up we've put out here from time to time to show people what it's like.
Pass.
Yeah.
Ellen?
Yeah, I got lots of questions. First of all, we've got a parking problem down here. So to bring in buses and more people, you're gonna have more of a problem. We just got some word from the homeowners now that they've just done a review of the parking and they're not gonna change it. We're thinking about giving resident permits. Parking's gonna be a mess. You bring in school buses, it's gonna be more of a mess. My other comments are about the sculpture. Gonna block views, gonna be, not organic. And it's gonna take ongoing cleaning, and there's a bird sanctuary here. You know where the birds are gonna make their nests and all. We're gonna do it in the sculpture, whether or not we like it. And vandalism, everywhere you go down there, there's a broken post, there's somebody who's broken the post, the benches are broken. And there's beer cans thrown around, so you're gonna have vandalism, you're gonna have to, consider that, although this is a fabulous project, and I really respect you for doing that. Have you checked with the residents? The residents who live along the path, do they want this there? Is the lagoon private property, and can you put signs on the lagoon side?
Hey, Ellen, can I pause you real quick there? Maybe we answer a couple of those questions like in order, because I think your
Oh.
question about engagement maybe would be an important one to answer.
Okay. You want to answer something?
Let's go back a bit.
Okay,
What was your first question?
okay. So my questions, have you checked with the residents about how they feel about having more buses and more parking? Because if you come down here most nights, I think you live near here.
Parking is impossible.
Yeah, so you want to bring more people?
We know that. That's why when this project is in place and becomes known, people will be encouraged to drive to the other end where there is no parking and to walk from that side.
That's only encouraged.
That's right. And it may not happen. It may
That's
be
right.
that you have an inflood of people from Iowa and Mexico and Illinois coming here wanting to learn about California history and find no parking. That's a problem.
I think most people who come here to visit come here to relax, just recreate, enjoy that. The learning, and I've traveled extensively, the learning is secondhand. Or we'll look it up, or we'll Google something if we want to know something about wherever we are.
Well,
Okay,
that is the nature of the project. It is
When
an
you're thinking,
educational.
when you're thinking about buses though, we're thinking about children and those buses. So usually the times I'm guessing would be between the 8 to 3, which is before the parking, actually.
there's buses around here all day long because they bus the kids over to school, over down on San Pedro, and then they
Yeah.
bus them back, 4 times a day? And there's other buses too.
True, but field trips are a little different and where everybody else is at work. So this parking, I assume, which I've
The
seen
most
is pretty
accessible at times.
accessible at time.
Yeah.
So that's my only thing.
So
on that.
those are my comments. Okay, so the parking, the water rising, you said 20 years, so the water's gonna be rising, it's gonna wipe out the boards then,
If nothing's done, yes,
okay?
but there are
what about-
plans afoot here.
Have you considered like putting it all around the perimeter of Pickleweed Park right here, where people don't have to go 2 miles, and they have a continuous story?
We did.
And,
And we said, no, and we talked to people in the community about this too, that the idea of a history trail on that path is, we're getting positive response to that.
okay, but have you
Yeah.
talked to Bay Point and Spinnaker people?
We in fact set up Zoom calls with both communities and, people who attended, who were shown what the project is all about, and we didn't get those kind of comments. We did get comments though that parking is a big issue in that community, and that overflow parking would be a problem. And yet I think everybody understands and admits that there's really nothing much you can do about that. We're not trying to create I hope we're not creating an attraction here that's gonna bring parking to the community, to the borough center.
Because I know there's a big controversy now about them trying to put up, street lights along the path, which is absolutely absurd. That destroys it for all the homeowners along there. Okay, and again, the weekly vandalism, I observe vandalism all the time, and I observe, beer cans and other things thrown around and cigarette butts. So you're gonna have to count that in, but otherwise, I appreciate the work that you've done. You've really done an extensive job here,
Thank you.
but I do have concerns.
I hope overall this proves to be a very positive element to the city of San Rafael and the canal and to the, the surrounding residents here. We're hoping that there'll be events that are planned that have to do with that installation.
How about that new park that they're going to build? That's gonna go from the canals over to Montecito Plaza. How about putting it in that park? People can park, they've got
Well,
shopping centers on
I'll
both
tell you,
sides.
practically speaking, it would mean a total reversal of our project we have a VCDC permit that has been cooking since last July, a year ago. And we're at the point of getting permission to do the project by that body. City of San Rafael, we have an encroachment permit that has been in the works for 6 months. To consider what you're doing now, we would have to say, stop everything and start over.
But the main answer to that is that the funding for this that came from the California Coastal Commission is this project.
I used to be on the original.
And so it's like, that, the 200,000 that 4 years ago, that started this came for this project. So that funding from the coastal concern, that would be, I mean, half the money's already been spent, they would say, what the hell, right? I mean, it just won't work.
So it's also, it's not a wide path.
It's
So
what?
it's not a wide path. So you get two people walking together, they always have to scoot over if another person's coming towards them. If a bike's coming towards them, if someone with a carriage is coming towards them. So it's a small path. I don't see where you're gonna put all these school children running around on that path and the little
Well,
old
the
ladies.
exhibits are off the path. So if you're on the path, it's not impeding you. You know, if you stop and look at something, or you look at one of the exhibits,
It's in between them.
it could be a problem.
I do think that, I think that 2 miles is 10,560 feet, right? It's 5,280 times 2. And then I divided that by 24, and that was 440 feet. So that is a significant distance between every sign, 404. And if it's only 22 and one's at Pickleweed, then if that path is 2 miles, it's probably closer to 500 feet between each one, just for perspective. That's a significant distance between each sign.
Thank you, that was good.
Yeah, well, it helped me
Sure.
think about
That was
how.
really good now.
Devil's advocate, okay, I'm done for the night.
Sergio.
I-
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say I didn't say this, but I appreciate things that do bring people to the neighborhood to see the community center and to see the path, even though it affects parking. And as a resident here, certainly understand that. And as not living here right now, having to find parking tonight, I totally get that. But I appreciate things that let people see a community center that they can use and may not even know exists in San Rafael.
They're gonna use the restroom mostly.
That's okay. It's an inside restroom.
But
That
they
means
come
they're
in,
not
use
going
the
outside.
restroom, and they discover other things.
There's a library branch here.
I should tell you, one of the programs that we have with Canal Arts is what we're calling the Canal Marin Art Bridge. I know, because I don't live in the canal, I know how few people in Marin even know where the canal is. They've heard of it. They're probably kind of concerned about it, you know, what's life like in the canal. So we've been able to make a connection to outside communities. We work through the San Rafael Federation, Neighborhood Federation, and Mill Valley, Greenbrae, been able to say, if you're interested to know something about the canal and the canal community, come on over on a Saturday morning and meet some of the folks here, and we'll have some fun together. We'll do artwork. And pretty soon we've noticed people are sitting across the table from each other doing artwork and starting to practice bad English and bad Spanish, you know, and pretty soon it's a lot of fun. So the idea is that Marin knows so little about the canal community, and I think the more they know, the better.
And also, it should be emphasized that Spinnaker and Bay Point are considered part of the canals, but they're underrepresented in the murals and in the events.
Sergio, are there any other examples of something similar that you?
Well, I mean, there are interpretive signage. There's some beautiful examples on the East Shore, East Bay. Nothing that I know of that is a 2 mile experience. For the most part, it'll be a trail that gives you a few hundred yards or something limited. But we're interested. I'd love to know if there's something like this that's out there that has been done. We've looked, haven't found it.
Rosa.
I have a quick question. If you ever get a sponsor for the sculpture, what material are you going to use to do them? Or
To do the sculpture piece,
Huh?
oh, well, it's been designed. I can show you detailed design for it. It's heavy steel. It's something that will be there forever. You're concerned about it blocks the view.
Where's it gonna be?
Doesn't really, it's designed as an open structure.
Where are you gonna put it?
Where?
Yeah.
At the far end of the path, where we consider that the kind of the reception space for the project.
it's right by where those big buildings are, like
Near
near
Target?
that.
Near Target or near the
us,
beach?
Further.
No, at the beach, down at the far end of the beach.
Closer to the marine,
bridge.
rod gun, something they have, something marine,
Rod and Gun Club.
Oh, the Marine
Yeah.
Club.
right
And
around.
there's the public
I'm
restrooms
sure
out there.
there's a sign there too about the birds. That intersection right there.
The sculpture idea came from working with the tribe and coming to understand this belief that they believe in this time immemorial, that there was no beginning, there's no end, things go on. This is an ancient concept in our understanding of the world. Human beings have understood that there was no beginning, there's no end, and things do cycle, things do repeat. And this structure, this physical structure, is meant to evoke something about that. To say, if you think about it, time in the north, it continues.
Yeah, I'm not against the sculpture, but I was curious to know since it will be beside the sea, it won't get rusted or anything.
Well, it would in fact get rusted because it's built of steel that is intended to rust and then stay that way forever, so it doesn't decay.
Okay. And then, how about the signs? How big are you guys going to have them, or what measurement?
The signs themselves,
Uh-huh.
about this wide, 3 feet, by about this height, 2 feet, and about where I'm holding my hand now.
Okay.
It's just room enough for a wheelchair to be able to get underneath it.
That's nice.
Thanks.
Andre.
I think it would be helpful to have your presentation boards, like, or, a sample, like in real size, because it is a little bit hard to see, like, how big the typography will be, and obviously, it's like, for people who are, sight impaired, it would be helpful to make sure that we have, we're hitting ADA compliance around the type sizes and things like that, and the stories and, a lot, I'm definitely focused on a lot of the accessibility components that, like, Kate was touching on. Yeah, my initial thought was that the QR codes would take you to an audio, or at least a translation for, Vietnamese or other languages that aren't being covered on the signs. I feel like that's just kind of a critical component of accessibility, is for anyone experiencing the project to be able to experience it. I understand that, there's funding challenges
Well,
around that.
that's it's a great idea. The idea of creating a video of the story is then put at least on the Canal Arts website. You would have that story there. If you go, and we can invite you, a visitor, to go to that website, then you can see it in any language that you decide.
Right.
Readability is an issue. We've done several mock-ups of the pebbles. We have one now that we've had, we've had it up here, we've had it at the other end, in between. And testing readability. There are standards, the National Park Service standards for ADA access. We follow them.
Are you picking your type choices through that as well? I'm just curious where
Yes.
how that type is being chosen.
Yeah.
Let's see, other questions. So the navigation, like that's another big thing. It seems like it could be a little clearer at which point you're at in the story of the navigation along the top. You know, I mean, obviously I understand the storyline of going from the Ice Age to warming up as we go. That's cool to warm, you know, navigation, you know, as an element there. What are the graphics right below each one of those representing?
It's actually, you have to kind of study the symbols, but they're symbols that stand for that part of the history. You
Got it.
have to look at each one of them to see.
Right, I mean, that's what but they seem, I guess my concern is that they might be a little bit small to sort of read.
Well, when you see them on
Yeah, right.
they're highly readable.
That's why I want to see the actual printed out, you know,
Yeah,
version at
this
full
is-
size.
This is a terrible way to present.
Yeah, I fully understand. And, you know, for those who are actually just looking at the screen and not looking at this, the colors are way more vibrant, you know.
The lights around.
But, you know, I just think that navigation could somehow be a little bit clearer as to like where you are in the process. I mean, I see that like the type is changing to black, or, you know, something small is happening.
Each one says you are here, you are here, you are here.
Right, but I feel like there should be something like the whole panel is like inverse of the color, and there's a lot of different ways to handle it. I mean, I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I do a lot of navigation, and this is what I do. You know, and I'm an art director, so you know, get me going on the thing, I'll go forever. But I think that one component, I mean, it seems like it will add a lot to the story and help someone like figure out where they are in the process. Just having the text viewer here is probably just not quite enough to like give you that visual, like I'm at this point in the story.
Yeah, I'm interested. This actually came about, we're working with a couple of senior people with exploratory.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they're saying, this is the perfect thing. You have to some kind of a key to show you where you are in this chain. If there's a better idea to do this.
And I think I totally agree with that. I think having the navigation and understanding where you are along the story totally makes sense. I think it's just giving it some additional visual weight to that point rather than just relying on some sort of text, so that there's something, either we're dark or we're adding a caret below. There's a ton of different ways. I'm going to take this offline. I'm happy to like even give you some good visual samples. You know, so yeah.
Right.
All right, I'd like to open it up to public comment. Mario, do you have anything? Okay. Any final comments? Well, Rich, I appreciate all the effort you put into this and for you coming in tonight and sharing your vision. It sounds like we're getting close finally.
Yeah, it feels like we're just getting started.
Greg, did you have some final comments?
Yeah, I'm just gonna cap it off. I say same thing, Rich. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all those comments. I've been taking notes and trying to capture a lot of the comments. We've got the reporting we can refer back to as well. And then just as a reminder, you know, this is one part of the review process. The next step here will hopefully be that Rich and the Arts can go back and refine. We'd be expecting a final proposal for a public art review board. We do need final artwork before we start the public art review with that group and city council. And so our expectation is that they'll have an opportunity to really see the final artwork and be able to make informed decision at that point in time. So
yeah, we welcome. This has been a real adventure.
The meeting or the whole?
The last 3 years.
It's time to retire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luis.
I know it's a lot of.
it's getting dark out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna cancel.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Luis.
Safe lifelines.
So I was very excited to move on to item 4, which I said we're going to postpone, but we're really going to postpone it because I was really excited to show you the park. enhancement and get you out there before we open it up. But I don't think it's really safe to be walking around in the dark out there, but I invite you, you can come out and check it out from the deck. And then in my staff report in a little bit, we'll kind of give you a little bit more update on that. So we'll go ahead and cancel item 4 and we'll get you out there soon. So we'll move on to item 5, committee reports. We'll go around in the circle and we'll give any updates on any meetings or anything related that you'd like to report. We'll start with Janet, since you're sitting next to me.
Report.
Nope.
No.
Mine?
No, I don't have any for this week.
Ellen? Nope. Sergio?
Just like one thing I thought of, just talked about public art, I thought was really cool, and I've seen in Tiburon, that park on the bay, they have like sometimes art things, like public art exhibits that like kind of come apart out there, but like, I don't know, it's kind of cool, and they have like these temporary art exhibits. Temporary, like, you know, it's usually like with like flags or, you know, something that might come apart, but it's not valuable stuff out. I thought that was interesting. That'd be kind of cool to see more of. Just these kind of temporary things. Usually something people take pictures, I don't know, you know, for social media or something. Anyways, public art is good.
Good. Yes, I think, you know, Craig's been a big part of it with the city, but the city's really been developing a plan for both permanent and temporary art. I think everybody's in agreement that the more art, the better. That was it.
Yeah, I won't go to a meeting right now.
Andre?
Not to make you all jealous, but we did a tour of the walking tour with Craig of the enhancement project here, and it's amazing. It's such an incredible resource for now. I'm jealous.
Yes.
Excited that the library is reopening, the Carnegie Library is reopening, and that to see what that looks like in there, is reopened now.
Yes.
That's great. And I was really disappointed to receive the news from the city that they're not going to try anything with the permit program, and didn't have much more direction from that communication other than that, which was also
For the parking permit.
Yeah, from the parking permit program, especially given my experience again tonight, having to not live here right now while the work is done on our unit. It's been just so challenging to come and do anything here.
Me, only attended yesterday for the police night. What is the name?
National Night.
National Night, yeah, I attended in 3 different places with Carla Alvarez. And we're learning about that. And we are thinking for next year, our community going to do one maybe. For the community have more connection. Yeah, with connection with the police.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we are thinking about that.
Good.
Question, who's gonna take over?
We'll get to that. Craig, do you have any updates before I go into mine?
I think we mentioned most of them, but yeah, the downtown library reopened on Monday. So the Carnegie Branch Library is reopened and the staff are excited. It looks great. If you get a chance to go check it out, I encourage you to go check it out. Did some great improvements there. More restrooms now than just one. So yeah.
I had a quick question. What happened to the library that had opened on 4th Street?
Yeah, so that was a temporary pop-up library. We actually rented that. That was a privately owned building. And so we moved out of there. Had a really good experience there. I think the staff were excited to try something new. The community was excited about that. So you had a lot of people show up at the pop-up that didn't normally go to the library. It was a different location. At the same time, our staff was ready to get back to the downtown library and move back in. So
And it seems like the community is too, you know.
Yeah.
They've really fixed it up and it looks great. A lot of people really pushing for that, the Carnegie building.
When it moved back into there?
they just moved back in on Monday. It was the first day that we've been reopened. So just a little under a week now. And kind of on that same note, we're getting close to the Pickleweed branch library renovations. That's going to start this fall. That project is out to bid for construction. So we're going to be reviewing the contractors hopefully soon, and then hopefully bringing that to City Council this fall for review. We'd expect that if that moves forward, that we'd go into construction sometime late fall into the winter. And I'd have to take a look back at the notes of how long, but during that time, we're gonna try to have some continuing services here with Dropbox lockers that are here. Do we kind of make sure the community knows which programs we're gonna be able to continue during that renovation project. Just want to make sure. Yeah.
Question on that. Can't you just set up the library in some other rooms temporarily?
The rooms are so utilized for different programs that it's hard to give them up. And all the volume of books that they need, and also it's going to be kind of like the Amazon lockers that we'll have out in the lobby that people can do. And library staff will be here to program in some of our classrooms like they do right now. So.
Yeah. So we did talk about it. Good question. Yeah, I mean, I think the big one for me though is that you're retiring.
Can we bring that at the end of the?
Yeah, I know.
Finally
All right, so I'll pop into mine, item number 6, staff comments. You might have seen we were walking down the hall. We have a new exhibit down the hallway. Marin Ventures put up an art exhibit last Friday, and they held a little reception on Saturday. The display went through the public art review board process and will be up here in the center until late September, where it will be replaced by the Dia de los Muertos murals that we put up. Marin Ventures is a community engagement day program for adults with developmentally disabilities. The mission is to foster independence and personal growth and to promote the opportunity for community integration. So it's nice to mix it up. We've had other of our programs hang art up there before, but it's nice getting an outside group in here as well. So we welcome that here. The Pickleweed Park Enhancement Project, which we were going to walk through. We keep scooting the date out a little bit. If you look, the major part of it is done and it looks fantastic. There's a few safety items that they actually took care of quite a few of them this past week. There's still a few more. So we're on the home stretch. We've been saying mid-August we'll be able to open. It might be a little bit later August, but we're hoping in the next few weeks, I hope before I leave, that we'll be able to open it, but it is coming soon. And we've been working with all the sports leagues and trying to keep them posted of when we can do it. And right now, the ribbon cutting, which you all will be invited to, is potentially mid-September. That's still the plan. Great, right? Last night, we had a Canal Karate belt ceremony. It wasn't as big as we usually do, but we had 14 students with white belts progress to yellow belt and 1 brown belt in a small ceremony we had last night. And then, unfortunately, due to unexpected fiscal rollback of federal funding, the TAM Adult School has been forced to pause or cancel their fall season of ESL. You'll recall that the advisory committee approved their co-sponsorship application in June, and TAM remains hopeful that they will gain some federal funding to come back in January so they can continue the program that's been with us for quite a while. August 20th is the first day of school, and YMCA held a summer camp. They're taking a little break now, but they'll be back prior to clean and organize and prepare for the upcoming school program. Most of our summer programs have come to an end, with a few still going strong. Junior Giants, which we had to move to Albert Park Stadium due to the delay in opening our fields, concluded last Saturday. A lot of the families enjoyed being out there in the big stadium. Unfortunately, it caused many of them have to drive, and we did cut the program from 2 days a week to 1. But we are excited. We got a little staff walk of the fields yesterday, and Stephen Rogers, our coordinator who runs it, got really excited when he saw the markings for baseball out there. And next year's going to be great. In fact, he was ready to start this fall, Junior Giants. So we're excited. Our custodian also takes this time in between summer and fall programs to deep clean the center, many of the rooms, and touch up paint. So Carlos has been working really hard on that. This fall, we've got continuing our Canal Karate program, which is ongoing throughout the year. We'll have a new session, the Canal Mini Soccer League, start in October after our summer program ends with them. We'll have introduction to ballet class, the evening Zumba class 3 nights a week, teen salsa classes, voiceover, yoga, and then movie in the park and the community outreach will be on October 10th. With Mufasa is what the community picked, and it'll be shown in Spanish with English subtitles.
Is that nighttime Zoom, is that sponsored by Ripple?
No, that's the daytime one. So the nighttime one, it's a separate one.
$8
Yeah, this is a different one. And then our program coordinator, Stephen Rogers, will be out at the end of September until mid-November as he's expecting the birth of his son. So we're all excited for him. And then the Pickleweed Library, Craig already mentioned, will be closing. They were potentially going to end close at the end of August. Now that's going September, a little bit later. They wanted to make sure that downtown library is fully open. And as Craig mentioned, they're taking the bids now, but that will be coming up on us pretty soon. And then Craig, Sergio was involved with the process too, but do you have any updates on my replacement?
Yeah, that question, I heard that question earlier. We did hire, sadly, it's bittersweet, right? We're sad to see Steve go. Steve's a replacement. But we also need to hire someone to replace Steve. So we did go through a process, had a lot of great applicants. We are going to be welcoming Christy Kubacher, who it was most recently the recreation supervisor for the city of Mill Valley. She was the CEO of the Sonoma Marine Fairgrounds, has a lot of other diverse experience in her background, knows Marin County really well. Definitely we're gonna have to share what this community center is all about, what this community is all about as we welcome her to the role. She's gonna be starting on August 25th. So she'll have about a week of overlap with Steve, and I'm just gonna say, Steve, tell her everything that she needs to know.
I'm working on a manual that's getting free things.
So, we're excited to have her join the team and definitely to introduce her to you and this group. She will be stepping into the role that Steve has been in to be the chair here of the committee and help guide these meetings. I'm also going to try to be down here quite a bit in the next few months. So you may see me more frequently down here to help support, especially since she'll be new. Steven's going to be out for a period of time, so hopefully I can help support. Steve took me on a facility tour. We climbed up on the roof the other day and just to see all that. He's a brave man. That is an adventure to get up there. So, but Steve, 16 plus years with the city. How many total years in recreation and music?
Including part-time, be 45 years. Retiring with 32, but then there's some years in other out of state, but then
45 years.
1980.
I mean, I just want to say thank you for that. I mean, I've been here for a short period of time, but I know how much you've done for the city in the 16 years that you've been here. And we're going to miss you for sure. But we're hosting a retirement party. I think I sent an invite out to all of you. It's Thursday, August 28th, from 4:30 to 7:30 at Tam Commons. You do not need to RSVP. Just show up. We'd love to see you there so we can help celebrate Steve. We're not going to do any speeches or anything there. So because Steve told us we can't. But I'm glad I had this chance to just a quick acknowledgement. Really appreciate everything you've done, Steve.
You got a speech.
Yeah.
I got it in now.
Yeah, that's right.
I wanted to say on that same note, I was so excited to see the posting for the field coordinator position and that the city had decided to move forward with that. So are you able to provide any information on whether that will be ready to start?
Right, that's something we had an idea, and I applaud Craig. He really enjoyed that or liked that idea and made sure it went through the budget process, which was great. But like we have facility attendants inside the building on nights and weekends, we're going to be hiring people to be outside and kind of an ambassador. We really want them to be a positive person, welcoming people in, but on the same note, no, we don't allow alcohol, you can't bring chairs, or what you can and can't do in the park proactively, so that people start using the park in a positive way or the correct way. And it's going to be busy. We've got all of our regular people that are eager to come back in and we're wanting to come in. And then we've got people we've never heard of before that are, hey, you guys have the best fields in town, And then it's very important to me and I believe Craig and see as part of the grant, we need to also schedule some community time on there too, some downtime, whether it's sharing a field, they only get half, or just time for the kids in the community and adults too, or families to come out and play out there too. So it's finding that balance, and, you know, I don't think my experience is there's no right formula from the start. It's just being able to adapt. See how the use pattern is. We're excited, and that's definitely gonna help. You know, it's finding several seasonal people, weekends. We're hoping to have somebody from 9 until sunset. Obviously, when you get later into the year, it's gonna get dark a lot. So it might be just, you know, 5 o'clock. We might not need people during the week, and just be on weekends. Sounds like we've got some interest. I haven't seen, yeah, HR said a lot of people were interested. We haven't received a list yet and started that process, but we hope to in the next couple weeks.
Thank you.
So thanks.
When you said was back to school?
20th,
20.
August 20th.
Wow.
Yeah, some of the private schools are going back next week.
So is that a paid position around here?
The attendant one, yes, it is. Yep, we have flyers out in the flyer rack there too, if anybody's interested. Good. All right. There's no other comments,
Who is going to take up this?
that's what Craig just,
I didn't hear the first name. and then-
Yeah, her name is Christy Kubacher,
Oh, yes.
and she's gonna be starting on August 25th,
Oh.
so a couple weeks away.
Becky, let's adjourn Steve's last meeting.
that's it. Our next regular meeting, your next regular meeting will be October 1st, here in person. And we'll adjourn the meeting, and it's 8:55. And Becky, we appreciate all your help as always. You've always been there for me at these meetings. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Steve. All right, see you, everyone.
All right, have a good night.
Bye, Becky.